everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Time We Discuss studio. Special shout out to children's author Aubrey Andrus for the introduction to my next guest. Make sure you check out her video on Time We Discuss. Today I'm speaking with Devon Lucas, and it's time we discuss board game writing. Devon, thank you so much for joining me today on Time We Discuss.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So you worked with some interesting brands, ones that I'm familiar with, such as Cranium, Taboo, and Trivial Pursuit. You've also worked on others that are completely unfamiliar to me, such as Awkward Hugs and 21st Century Problems. Now,
Yeah.
prior to our introduction, I had no idea that a board game writer even existed. So that being said, tell me, what is a board game writer expected to do, and what's your day typically like?
When I was working in a corporate environment, the brands that you've mentioned were all at a corporate job that I had, and that was running those brands from a content development aspect. So I had the responsibility of making sure that all of the words in and on the box were my responsibility. So that doesn't mean that I wrote every single one of those words. Sometimes there are writers that are hired to do one. A good example of that is Trivial Pursuit. We would hire writers for different categories. They would have to make sure that they're writing within a brief that it's a very long brief that we would give to everybody. And then other games, like you mentioned, Awkward Hugs, which is my favorite game. It's right here, actually. Like, I actually keep it with me because I love this game so much. That was working with the game designer and coming up with gameplay and content. And then packaging and rules and everything like that. That was sort of the typical responsibilities in a corporate environment. I've been doing freelance for 6 years. And so what happens is a company will contact me, say we're working on a game, send me a brief that gives me an idea of the content that I'll be writing. Mostly what I focus on is content development. I do rules and package for almost, I'd say half of the clients that I have. Some of them just come to me for content development. And then others will say we also need rules and package, or game names, taglines, all of those types of things. So I've got different clients that I'm working with right now. Some of them I'm just doing content development, and then others I'm doing everything.
Now, when you were in a corporate environment compared to now, do you have more flexibility at all? Or is it still kind of like, or do you have less flexibility now where the client says, no, this is what I want and do it? What's that like?
I think that I had less flexibility when I was in the corporate environment because we had a lot of people weighing in saying, oh, I don't know, this, especially when you were naming games and taglines. Those were very, because it's like, this is the first thing you see about the game. So we would have a million meetings. I don't have meetings really anymore. I have one client that I absolutely love, who I do actually meet with every week, and we're working on a certain number of games, and we are doing all sorts of stuff with them. And they are incredibly wonderful. And if I have an idea for something, there's not like this, like, oh, 7 levels above is saying it has to be like this. So I would say for corporate, it was more structured. And then for freelance, I've had games that I'll come up with where they'll come to me and say, this is the brief, this is what we're doing, and stuff like that. And then I'll just go from there, and then I'll bring it back to them, and they'll say, oh, okay, yes, this is exactly what we thought we meant, without even realizing what we thought we meant. So I just find I love being a freelance person. I love being able to work on so many different projects with so many different companies. And it's not always just games either. Sometimes it's a toy. I worked on the Furby last year that was amazing. So that was a really good team because they just let me go wild, and I wrote the weirdest things that I could come up with. That's usually what I do, is I sit in my office and just come up with the weirdest things that I can possibly think of and say, would this character say this? Would somebody want to say this to another person when they're reading a card? Do stuff like that. So I think that there's a lot of freedom in it, and I really like that.
That's incredible. For those of you watching this after the fact, only Devon can see me right now. Well, everyone can see me right now, but when Devon's speaking, she's the one that can see me. And I'm grinning, I'm laughing. It sounds really, really cool and exciting. So I've asked this before to other people that are in creative fields. How do you stay creative in this field? How do you keep the creativity wells from drying up? What's your source of inspiration?
That's a very interesting question. I'm super ADHD, And I'm also in the mental health community. I'm bipolar. And so I have a lot of different personalities inside of me. So I know this sounds really weird. And you're probably like, wait a second, this is not at all what I wanted to talk about or was asking. But I actually feel, because I have that just such a weird situation going on in my head, that if somebody comes to me and says, we're making a game for an 8-year-old kid, 8-year-old kids, I can get into that 8-year-old kid and say, like, okay, how are we going to act as an 8-year-old kid? And then it's like the next thing is a drinking game. And it's like, okay, well, what, that. It's just, there's so much going on that I feel like it would dry up, but it never seems to. And so if I'm sitting there, because I do have writer's block, I do get all of the typical things. If I'm sitting there and just being like, I have no idea, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? I have absolutely no idea. But I'll stare at my office and just sort of look around, and there's so much going on that I can just look at one little thing and say, okay, that's a good inspiration to start doing this, and then go from there. And then sort of, once it starts flowing out of me, it starts flowing. And sometimes that happens within the first 30 seconds. And sometimes it makes me step away for a day and then come back and say, okay, I'm ready.
Off the top of your head, can you think of something that was like your weirdest sort of inspiration for something, where just something like jumped at you, was ridiculous, and you ran with it?
I'm trying to think of how I do it. Cause like, I really mean, like, I'll look, like, I have this weird little cat sitting here. It's like a little just weird thing. And then I'll sort of think, okay, well, what's that cat thinking about? And so then I sort of start going from there, because I've definitely worked on games that have animals in them and stuff like that, and personifying animals. And so it's just, my brain just goes to really weird places. I remember when I was working on the Furby game, I was just sitting there. I worked in a library too. Sometimes I take my office elsewhere so that I'm not surrounded. I have a lot of animals in the house. There's a lot going on in the house. And so I'll take myself away, and I still, even in a kind of sterile environment like that, I can just sit there and look around, and my brain just starts to wander, and all of a sudden I'm like, so that's kind of a way of describing it, I guess.
Now, you said before, I think it was with this one particular client, the one that you meet with on a weekly basis, it sounded like you said that you're working on games, plural, with this person. Are you, or this organization, is that typical for you? Do you typically work on more than one game at a time? What's that like?
Well, so you mean with the same company, or it's separate?
I guess either.
Okay, because right now I have 4 different things that I'm working on at the time for different companies. I've got 4 major clients right now that I'm working on very different projects with each of them. The one game company that I'm working with, where it's multiple ones, what we're doing is we're taking games and making them in a specific population of people. So it's actually the older population, which is really cool, because a lot of games are not designed for the older population. Everybody thinks like kids are doing the stuff, so we have to make games for kids, and we're actually not. We're making it for the old, which we call it the older population. So instead of saying senior, we did 3 games. They were licensed with a company, and then we did a Trivial Pursuit, we did a Scrabble, and we did a Game of Life. That were all in this genre of generations and things like that. And we were working on them simultaneously. So, you're working on the content for one game at the same time that you're working on the content for another game at the same time that you're doing the package copy and the rules and stuff like that. And they're an awesome company to work with. I don't know if I'm allowed to like call them out or anything like that, but so it's just, it's really great, because my brain is always moving around. And then on top of that, I have my other clients, and sometimes they'll pop up I won't hear from them for a year. This happened to me with one of the major toy companies for games. They randomly last week were like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Do you want to do this? And I was like, yes. And it's a very different game, very different age grade, all of the types of stuff where I have to go. It's like a huge different licensor. Like, I have to go into this brain and say, okay, now we have to go over here. And I do that in a day where it happens like from 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm working on the rules for something, and then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm writing content for a game that has nothing to do with the other. So there's a lot going on at all times, which
Sounds
is
like it.
my brain is like, woo! And
Now,
then sometimes my brain is like, no.
now, Devin, how did you actually get started in this career path?
So I was at a farm. I volunteer at an animal sanctuary, and I was working with recruiters to try and get a job for writing, because I was like, I want to be in writing, I want to do this. And I was working as a copywriter for like 3 months at a different place, or whatever it was, like doing all these different things. And I was at this farm, it was a blizzard, and there were people there, and they were shoveling for us, which was amazing and so nice. And this woman was just like, oh, I work at that company, let me see if I can get your resume in front of somebody's face. And 2 weeks later, I was a contractor at this major toy company that honestly I'd never really heard of. And it's like one of those things that people are like, I'm sorry, you've never heard of them? And I was like, I don't know, I don't play games. And I started as a contractor there, as the party and girls team copywriter. Is basically, it's called brand writer is what they call it, and actually they call it something else now. But so I was there as a contractor for 6 months, got hired full time, and then basically switched just over to the party team. So I was doing the dual thing, and then I was on the party team and running all these brands. And like, I remember the first day that I was there, I sat down and was having to go over rules that the person before me, because I was replacing somebody, had written. I had, what? Like, I was like, what? And I was just like, all of a sudden writing rules for a game. And then there's all this content in it and stuff like that. And I was just all of a sudden responsible for all of this stuff that I'd never, ever thought of. Like, I never, as you said, I never thought that this was a job.
Part of that also included going through the game and actually playing with people to make sure the rules actually checked out and everything, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Is that like, instead of Monday morning stand up, you had like your Monday morning like game? Like what?
Yes, that was my favorite part of working in corporate. And honestly, it's the one thing that I miss desperately, is that I would schedule meetings, like the awkward hugs that you mentioned. We would schedule meetings that I would just send this meeting to like 20 people and go, just go to conference room 8 at 12 o'clock or whatever. And then 20 people would show up, and then we would just sit in the room and laugh hysterically for an hour. And people would be like, I don't want to leave. And I'd be like, I don't want to leave either. Let's just extend it by an hour and just keep playing. And we did this with I worked on a lot of games there that were like just so fun to test. And then they also did a thing where they have children come in and you can watch them play the games and stuff too. But my favorite ones were really the fact that it was like my friends. We were just sitting around tables laughing hysterically and just being like, okay, cool. Yeah, this game works. And then you are also testing content and stuff like that. And if something doesn't work, then you're saying, no, that one really didn't work. But this card works and that card works. And it was really fun. So yes, I desperately miss that. I've done it a couple of times outside of it. And we actually, the company that I mentioned before, we do it with the older population, which is super fun too. I mean, it's amazing to see the difference in, I don't know, when I was in my 20s, was I in my 20s? I don't remember how old I am right now. But it was just the fact that it was like my friends doing stuff. And when you're doing it with strangers, it's so interesting because you don't necessarily know the dynamic. And sometimes it's so funny. Like, it's just hilarious things happen. And I love game testing. And
what prompted you to go down the freelance route? Why did you leave the corporate environment to go freelance?
I am not a corporate person. So when I went into this corporate environment, for me, the fact that I was there for 5 years was insane. Like, I would look around and be like, what am I doing here? And then I'd go off and do one of those meetings. It was really fun. But then I'd also go off to a development meeting where we would discuss the boring stuff for an hour. And I really was like, I don't think that I can do this in this corporate, so structured environment. And I didn't know that I could do it on my own. And I did. So it was like, there's a nice network of people that have left that big major corporation that, they all pull you in. So if you're good at what you do and you have a reputation for it, there are people who are going to take you with them when they go to a different company, or they're going to say, right, Devon is the one who can do this and she nailed that project, so let's make sure that she does it. And then so you just build up a reputation. I also go to Toy Fair, which is an industry, like, big huge convention And I will literally pound the floors walking up to people and being like, you guys make content or games with content. And then, hi, I'm Devon. You should hire me to do this. Here's why. And then I go through and like do my spiel of what I've done. And then they go, oh, you actually have done this and know what you're doing. So there's a really good network of people that I've just introduced myself to and said like, hi, do you want this? And then they've contacted me.
For someone that isn't quite as assertive in their ability to market themselves, would they find this type of job difficult, especially the freelance component? What do you think about that?
I think with freelance, though, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to pound the pavement, and you have to keep writing those little emails that are just like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Just wondering if you have any games. And then just sit there and be like, please write me back. Please write me back. And they don't always write you back. And then sometimes a year later, they pop into your box and are just like, hey, it's been a while. Can you do this? And it's just like, yes. And that's the other answer is it's always yes for me. So if I've got a lot on my plate at once, I'm still like, yes, I can do this. When do you need it? When I work quickly, I work efficiently, and I want to give the best possible work that I can. So I'm always saying yes.
That's interesting. I've heard several other people say that, take that same attitude that like, yes, I can do it. So that's again, that this theme is coming up again. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How important do you, and I'm going to ask two questions at the same time, actually. How important was your college degree in creative writing? How important was that in doing what you do now? And how important do you think it was you starting out in a corporate environment first? How important is that in what you do now? Do you think someone that has neither of those experiences can be equally successful?
I went to a very good writing school. So, and I actually take classes as a grown-up, in their institution. They've got like a continuing ed stuff. So I'm taking one right now. I'm doing courses over the summer. Like I'm also writing a novel, or trying to. So I'm constantly trying to hone that craft. Do I think that they prepared me for life? No, they did not prepare me at all for life. I graduated going, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do. I floundered around and I did all the stuff. And I didn't come out going, I'm going to write books and I'm going to do this. Like I really didn't do, but the craft itself was absolutely important. The corporate environment for what I do, I would say that it's very helpful to go to a toy company or a game company and work for them, however you can do it. Like, so if it's an internship, if it's a couple of years in it, I would say in the toy and gaming industry, you need to establish who you are. I mean, I know there's people making games and stuff, but that's not me. I don't invent new games. If I'm working with designers, I'm working on designing the game, but I don't sit in my office and say, okay, what if there was a game where these two people were doing this? And then I just don't do that. And I've been asked to do it, and it's not for me. But the corporate aspect of it, having worked at that company, I never would have been able to have the career that I have right now if I hadn't done that. I very strongly feel that, especially because I didn't even really know what it was. Do I appreciate those years? Absolutely. Like I respect the hell out of everything that I went through there, that I was like, if it was traumatic, I'm still like, I learned a lot from it. So I would say that you need, unless you're a real go-getter and you're like, I've come up with this game and it's going to be, I know people like that too. I know inventors that are just like sitting in their office coming up with games, and they go out there and they pound the pavement and they take their games to Toy Fair and they take their games to people's offices, and those companies say, yeah, I'm going to take your game. So can you do it outside of corporate? Absolutely. But you need to be an inventor, and you definitely need to be a go-getter and do it.
Now, how about this? If someone is, they're reinventing themselves and they want to switch over into a career such as yours, do you think, and they have all this experience behind them, so they may have a master's degree already or something like that. Do you think a good choice for them could be to, like you said, still try to get in with a corporate company? Or do you think maybe it makes more sense, probably depends on the specific person, but maybe it makes more sense to just go out on their own and try to do the freelance thing and make the connections without having that the clout that you would get from being at a larger corporation. What do you think about that? Someone that's like trying to transition.
Freelance is hard. Like it's hard. I love it. And also it makes me cry at night sometimes because I don't know. There's imposter syndrome and stuff like that too. Like you just don't know. You're like, am I doing this right? I don't know. Why are they writing me? Like, why do they want me to do this? For my own personal experience, had I not worked there, I have no idea what I would be doing right now. Like I have no idea. So I would say for me and for the type of person that I am, I needed that structure. I needed to learn how to be a person in the business world. I needed to learn, like the job was so different than anything I'd ever done. So I didn't have that idea of, I needed it. I needed to have been in that environment.
Devon, this is the part of the show where I like to ask a surprise question. This has nothing to do with your job. It's just usually a completely random question. So your question today, we all have our foods that we really like and the ones that we wish we'd never even tried. We all have a particular food that we swear we could eat all day and every day and never get tired of it. What's that food for you?
Cheese. It's cheese. I love cheese. I love all cheese. I just love cheese. And I have a book group that we meet and we have cheese, and I'm always just like cheese, and Instagram we have like a couple of us in a group, and I just send cheese memes because every time I see one I get so excited and I'm like, this is me. I love cheese. Is it a particular cheese that too, like if I were to go into it, I'd say I gravitate towards Swiss and that family, so Emmental and stuff like that, but I will eat any kind of cheese. I love cheese so much.
So another thing I like to do is offer the person I'm speaking with the opportunity to share a particular project they're working on or a cause they believe in or something like that. So Devon, if there's something that you'd like to share with the community, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, I've been volunteering at an animal sanctuary for the last 13 years. Ever since my husband and I moved to Massachusetts, that was the first thing that I found when I was here because I came from rescue in Connecticut. And I wanted to get into rescue in Massachusetts. And I found an animal sanctuary called Winslow Farm Animal Sanctuary. It's in Norton, Mass. And it's got about 200 animals. Most of them are birds and cats that make up the population, but there are donkeys and horses and goats and pigs. And well, there's no llamas right now, but there are alpacas. And I go and I run a barn every Sunday, and I get to take care of pigs, alpacas, chickens, horses, and donkeys, and a mule. So my section has this menagerie of animals. Most of them it's like you take care of the horses or you take care of the goats or whatever. Mine is like everybody, and I am obsessed with it and I love it. I wrote a blog for a really long time about the animals called Minding the Minis, where I would just write stories about the animals. But yeah, it's run by this woman who's lived on the property her whole life. And it's just you walk in and it's an enchanted forest. I mean, the first day I went there, a cat jumped up onto the roof of my car, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, apparently I'm home. So I've been there for 13 years, as I said, and I got run over by a horse there, and we're still best friends. Like I love the place so much. So it's every Sunday I go, and Winslow Farm, I think it's just winslowfarm.com. I don't think she got the org for it, but it is a 501c. It is definitely a rescue, and they do take donations and stuff like that, and it's just the best place on earth.
That is awesome. So I'll make sure I get the URL from you. I'll put that in the show links, and also we'll see if we can get a donation link too. We'll throw that in there as well. Should anyone like to help out, that would be fantastic. Devon, awesome. It has been completely awesome speaking with you. Just your energy that you have, the ridiculousness of your job. I love it. It was great speaking with you. Thank you for joining me today on Time We Discuss.
Thank you. I cut you off. Sorry. On Time We Discuss. Dan, this is awesome. I really enjoyed this. Like, I appreciate the fact that you wanted to talk to me. So
absolutely. Well, that conversation was nothing short of awesome. I had a really great time speaking with Devon. I hope you enjoyed the time too. After we ended the call, we ended up just chatting for just a few more minutes. And one thing she emphasized as a little bit of a postscript was just right. If you want to be a writer, just write. We might be paraphrasing, but the takeaway is, if you want to be a writer, just write. If there's a profession that you'd like me to cover, make sure you leave a comment below and I'll find that person for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That'll do it. See you next time on Time We Discuss.